What's up, guys? We're out here at Bryant Ridge. They have graciously invited me out here to take a look at one of their items for their upcoming Collector's Elite auctions on Gunbroker. And this is a really, really neat piece. I've never seen one before. You've probably never seen one before. It is a experimental prototype Colt Python Mark III. I know, never heard of it. 4-inch barrel. It's got a factory letter with it. We got a couple other guns out here too that are going to be used to help tell the story of what this is, why they were experimenting with this, and why ultimately they didn't end up putting it into production. So stay tuned. We're going to get a close-up on this, on the letter, on these two, and I hope you enjoy this video. So what we're looking at here is actually an experimental prototype Colt Python Mark III. This was part of the Colt factory collection, and it was part of the big auction that Greg Martin Auctions held, where they auctioned off several of the experimental prototypes that had been held in the Colt factory collection. And it's got a factory letter with it that tells it was sent to Greg Martin Auctions in San Francisco, California, October 16th, 2008. That's the official ship date for this revolver on the factory letters, 2008, because until then it was still in the Colt factory as part of their factory collection. But if we zoom in here on the barrel, we'll see that beautiful unique roll mark. Python Mark III 357 Magnum cartridge. It's definitely something you don't see every day. We just got a standard black serrated front ramp. 4-inch barrel. We got a standard adjustable rear sight, and we do have a color case hardened hammer, because really the frame of this gun is just a standard Trooper Mark III. See, they've added the ventilated rib barrel and that unique roll mark. This was an attempt by Colt in the 70s, 80s. They were experimenting with possibly switching over the Colt Python to the Trooper Mark III action. And there's a reason for that we'll go into a little bit later in the video, because the Trooper Mark III action was much simpler, required much less hand fitting, and was much cheaper to produce. Now obviously we know Colt obviously decided not to go through with this, because the Python remained basically unchanged up through the end of production in 2005. But this is definitely one of the most unique pieces of Python history you'll ever see. We do know that there is at least one other Python Mark III prototype in existence. Between the two, this example right here, J39897, is the higher condition of the two. We'll open it, and you can see the serial number right there, J39897. And we actually also have the factory letter that will ship with this gun. You can see the details there, royal blue with case hardened hammer, checkered and varnished walnut grips with gold plated rampant Colt medallion inlays, and it was shipped to Greg Martin Auctions in San Francisco, California on October 16th, 2008. So that's very nice to have the factory letter there with it. But in order to kind of more fully understand the story of this gun, we've actually got a couple other guns we're going to take a look at. We got a 6-inch Colt Python. We have Lawman Mark III. We're going to actually take a peek at the lock work on these so you can understand why Colt was experimenting with moving the Python to the Trooper frame. So what we actually have here is a Mark III style action and a Python style action. So if you look at the Python, the original style Python action, you'll notice it's a fairly complicated affair. Got this V-spring resting on a rebound lever. Got a double stepped hand right here, and that's what actually would give the older Colt revolvers their famous bank vault lockup. Back here behind the hammer, you can't see it, but you've also got a two-piece assembly for a hammer block, right there being the uppermost part of that. And these actions required a lot of hand fitting. The old style action that Colt used basically from 1893 to 2005 was a mechanical masterpiece, but it was also fairly overcomplicated, and it required a lot of hand fitting. In 1969, when Colt came out with the Mark III series, you can see that it's quite a bit different. Makes heavy use of coil springs instead of flat springs. You notice our mainspring right here is a coil spring on a plunger. We've got a separate trigger return spring now. Instead of relying on the rebound lever, we've got our own trigger return spring that's actually a coil spring right here on this peg. We've got a transfer bar system that is quite a bit simpler than the old hammer block that the older style actions used. And you see our hand spring is actually part of the transfer bar system. The other thing you'll notice is if you actually look at these parts very closely, trigger, you can see a molding mark right there, you can see one right here. The Mark III actions used what was called sintered steel, which is sort of a form of injection molding the parts. None of the parts in the old style actions were cast. These were all forged and machined hand fit parts. So it's easy to see why once Colt had come out with the Mark III series, it would be appealing to them to try to take their flagship revolver that they charge a lot of money for and make it more cost effective to produce by using the Mark III action. That's what they will actually end up doing later for the BOA revolvers. If you're familiar with the Colt BOA revolvers, they are a Trooper Mark V action with a Python barrel. That's all they are. And so the Python Mark III prototype shows that even before the BOAs came out, Colt was already beginning to think along those lines of using the simpler and more modern Mark III action for a Python style revolver. Alright guys, so there you have it. There's the close-up look at the Colt Python Mark III experimental prototype. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at such a rare piece of Colt history. Like I said, this is going to be coming up on a collector's elite auction, so keep an eye out for it if you want to own probably one of the rarest Python prototypes there is. I don't know when you're going to get another chance to get your hands on one of these, and this would probably be the centerpiece of any Colt collection. So thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned. Hopefully we'll have some other really neat stuff to show you in the future. Thanks.